Now, using fear to drive a person is not a good thing, as you probably know. Some might say, you think too much. Just do the work. That's it. If only it was that simple. It's never that straightforward for some people. I suppose you could say try to get some medication for it. That's possible. For me, I think I've always tried to use, self-discipline and willpower to try to overcome these things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't totally disagree with using medicinal or pharmaceutical methods to resolve these issues. Sometimes it just has to be done. So that path is something worth exploring, I believe, if it does become a severe hindrance. Of course, for the moment, it is more of it is a problem. How it manifests, it's not manifest. How it is a problem is when obviously you can't do your work properly, but you can push past that, as I say, using the horrible methods of fear as a driving force, but that takes a toll. You go home, you feel tired, and your life just becomes, go to work, do your thing, force yourself through it, come home, recover a little bit. Sometimes you just lie in bed worrying about it, go back to work, do the same thing again. You could say it is soul crushing in some ways. It's just trying to bring it back to anxiety again. I mentioned before what sort of things can come from it. Again, it depends on a person's personality. And part of that, as I said early on, is, lack of focus, energy might be an impact on energy levels, not being able to multitask, constant worries. Some of those things can be tackled, like energy. I suppose you could work out more. It doesn't have to be hitting a gym, lifting crazy amount of weights, that sort of stuff. It's just working perhaps on improving your physical stamina, things like that. That can help. I'm trying to do some of that, and also cutting down on a lot of sugary type food as well. A lot of perhaps bad cholesterol type food. But yeah, those are some of the ways to tackle it. And trying to think of other things as well. Oh, the other thing I forgot is, part of the problem that comes from anxiety is, I don't know if it derived from anxiety or it was there already, that is being easily overwhelmed. I remembered traveling once to a place I've never been before and being severely overwhelmed. I'm like that for other things as well. New experiences creates an a feeling of being overwhelmed, and that leads to anxiety again, and not being able to process things properly in my mind, and stress comes in. Some might say you just need to get exposed to it. I think that's what they call exposure therapy. The more you do it, the less you feel that way. I think that is true to a certain extent. There's certain things in my life, I keep doing it, but it improves slightly, but it doesn't seem to improve at a significant amount. Some say you just need to do more of it for longer periods of time. You know, I've done a few jobs before that gave me anxiety, and I've done it for years, and it still gave me that feeling of anxiety and being overwhelmed. I think after that it becomes dread, a sense of dread, something that you can't quite put your finger on. It's lingering in the background of your mind. It's just in the corner, and it seeps out during certain moments when you're at your weakest, or when you're feeling under pressure. So yeah, I really respect the people who are always under constant amount of threat, risk, pressures, and they're able to handle it. I suppose I've read somewhere some of those guys that just keep it in. Some of those people, they just keep it in, and then when they get back, it affects them in certain ways that can be self-destructive. But for some, it just seems to roll off, or just goes through them and doesn't seem to affect them. Some people get affected in certain ways. Some people do other things to try to, blow off steam, so to speak. Yeah, I guess it all comes down to the personality. This problem isn't just specifically on anxiety, whether or not anxiety was there to begin with or it came afterward. Perhaps I was prone to it, and due to certain circumstances or events, we're not talking about traumatic events. I mean, for some people, it is traumatic events that cause the problems they feel. When they get to that point, it becomes really bad. I mean, for some people like myself, it's not necessarily a traumatic event. It's perhaps something that's it expands itself due to certain events that I'm not very used to. It really causes a problem for social experiences as well. You can't quite hang out with large group of people. That's the most obvious one. Even on small groups or sometimes one-on-one, things get difficult. Like not being able to keep a good eye contact, speaking in a very clear way. If sometimes I feel very anxious, the problem becomes worse. It comes out in different ways. I would stumble on my words, or mumble, or fade away, or stutter. Those are just a few things that happens. Sometimes I can't talk directly face to face at a very close proximity with another person. So I have to talk in an angle, or sometimes I do look at them, but I have to break away after a while. For some reason, trying to hold that eye contact, a reasonable eye contact, for a reasonable amount of time, is mentally draining. It's one of those things that's not exactly easy to explain. It's not easy to explain at all, because it feels as if you're absorbing a lot of information and not being able to parse it. I don't think that's the right word, but not being able to process it accordingly, and just being overwhelmed, even just looking at a person. So it becomes a problem in forming any sort of relationship, whether it's just friendship or just general colleague relationship. It causes a bit of a problem in a new type of job with these requirements, these problems that I've never seen, it's never really come up to that extent, has come up because of the type of task that's required. And that's the job part of things. The social part of things has always been around being a problem. Now, as I said before, one way of trying to get past it is exposure. Putting that first step to try to go through it over and over again is daunting. But I guess it just has to be done to get past it. It's hard to say. I know I'm sort of jumping around all over the place. It doesn't quite make sense. But I think I'll talk a bit more about this later on. For the time being, this is just a rough idea of what people like me go through, or people with similar problems go through.